All right, what is good, everybody? It's time to preview Game 73 of this Blue Jays season. Welcome to Flight Deck. I'm your host, Nick Alberga. Flight Deck is a presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 5-run early payout. When your team goes up 5, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly at BlueJaysNation.com here on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. The written forum's fantastic as well. Make sure you check out BlueJaysNation.com. And unfortunately, a lot to discuss with this Blue Jays team. Again, Game 73 of the season. It's June 16th, and something remains off with this Blue Jays team. Just when they get healthy, a couple guys leave the lineup. The good news going into this series, this 3-game set here, we're about to preview against the Boston Red Sox, that Vladimir Guerrero, after missing a couple games due to a back issue, back tightness, I think was the official wording on that, back in this Blue Jays order and lineup tonight, which is excellent news. And watching over the weekend, that weird, awkward slide by Andrés Giménez on the infield single, you just knew when it happened, you're like, oh, crap, this guy's going to miss a bit. He did. And the good news, the fortunate news, Giménez also back in the lineup for the Blue Jays. They got to get motoring here, folks. I think you look at this series specifically, another division rival, another AL East division rival. They play the New York Yankees. It wasn't pretty. I wasn't crazy about that. Again, I talked about it on Friday's edition of Flight Deck, the importance of not only winning that game, but just demolishing the Yankees in that series specifically. And started off well. They won the first game of that 3-game set and then tailspinned after that, especially with the news of Vladimir Guerrero. And we'll see how he fares tonight. But I think the outside story to that, too, is the fact that Vladdy has been really struggling, and maybe it's the back. I don't know what it is, but he just can't find his groove at the plate right now. But the good news is that Vladimir Guerrero back in the lineup here for this Blue Jays team as they get set for this 3-game set against the Boston Red Sox, who have really struggled, just like the Blue Jays, to find their identity all season long. They're 29-40 on the season. They've dropped 5 of the last 7. 2 teams in a tailspin, quite frankly, where I think you look at expectations to start the year probably on accurate trajectory to each other, specifically Boston coming off that year they had last year and then doubling up this time around. And I think from the Blue Jays perspective, you have to find a way to not only win this game, set the tone in this series, which is my key to the victory here tonight, but just instill your will against an inferior opponent. I think when you look at Boston, another beatable ball club, like I was listening to an interview yesterday with Ernie Clement on a different entity, and he was talking about how they were right there with the New York Yankees. And I was a bit puzzled at that because last time I checked, Aaron Judge didn't play for the Yankees. You're the better team in that series to begin with. Never mind Aaron Judge not playing, and you go in there and you lose 2 of 3. Now I understand what is Ernie Clement going to say, but something remains off with this team. The chemistry's not there. For the most part, the pitching's been good. Like Patrick Corbin, again, you can't complain with what he has submitted throughout this season. A bit of a shock of a signing, but considering all the injuries in the pitching staff, it made a lot of sense. And he's lived up to his end of the bargain. I think that the key thing that stuck out, and I did this show a couple times, you guys know last week, was just the offense. It's nowhere to be found. And obviously a big integral part of the offense is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And again, the big news coming into this game, he's going to be back in after the back tightness, forced him to miss a couple games. I know he was on deck to pinch hit on Sunday, so that's great news. But Friday night, he went 1 for 5. He is now 3 for the last 26. If you're squeamish, turn away. 6 extra base hits since the beginning of May for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He has 3 bombs in the season, 0 at Rogers Center. 0 at Rogers Center. It really is, honestly, crazy to think about what he put together in the second half of last season, specifically in the fall, in the playoffs, to where this guy is at right now. It's night and day, and he's been zapped of his confidence. And the Blue Jays, quite frankly, in dire need of Vladdy to get going here. And maybe it's part and parcel to Alejandro Kirk being out of that lineup, but they were back together in some capacity on Friday. The Blue Jays won that game. They scored some runs. So maybe if they can find consistency in keeping these guys in the lineup, and among them Vladimir Guerrero Jr., again, with the back issues over the weekend, maybe they find success. But Al Kirk, small sample size, back in the lineup. That's the best news about this. But 2 games over the weekend, 4 for 7, 1 double, 1 run, 2 RBIs. In general, this team needs to get the offense going. I know a lot of people were puzzled, by the way, what was it on Saturday, where they elected to bunt Ernie Clement. I didn't have an issue with the small ball. I know some people will be naysayers of small ball in this era, and I get it. Ernie Clement's probably pound for pound your best or most important hitter right now, considering Vladdy's struggles as talked about. But I don't mind the idea of moving guys along, especially when there's been so much inconsistency when it comes to the offense. So I'm probably in the minority when I look back at the attempted bunt there from Ernie Clement, and I think it really stung more because he popped it up and it was caught, I believe, by the first baseman. So you don't even move the guy. You don't have scoring. I think, the next inning, the Yankees effectively took over that ball game. But that really clearly stood out among other storylines from the weekend against this New York Yankees team, again, that are supposed to be an inferior opponent with no Aaron Judge, no Giancarlo Stanton, among others. And the Jays also missed Garrett Cole. They missed Fried. Like it was on a platter for the Blue Jays over the weekend. I thought a really, really disappointing weekend overall. I had some potential the way it started on Friday night, but clearly dwindled after that. But good news to get Alejandro Kirk back in this lineup. A big bone of contention in Major League Baseball right now, by the way, seems to be all-star voting for some reason. I think people can't understand that the Blue Jays belong to the city of Toronto, but they also belong to the country of Canada, which, again, people look optically and say, holy crap, why are there so many Blue Jays leading their respective positions in all-star voting? Well, they have a whole country behind them. And I'll be honest, I think you poll a lot of people stateside would have no clue about that. I'll just leave it at that. But specifically, when you talk about all-star voting, the one that sticks out for me, and he's going to be an all-star because of his name brand. He has not played like an all-star. For example, Ben Rice was in this weekend. I probably put him above Vladdy when it comes to, deserving of being at all-star weekend this year. There's still some time remaining, but Vladdy's going to be there. Ernie Clement at two-bag leading his respective position in voting, which is great to see. I think the added nuance, too, of John Schneider being the coach for the American League All-Stars. Of course, as we all know, the two managers from the previous year's World Series managed the two squads. So we'll get a bit of a rematch of the World Series, sort of, in the form of John Schneider being the manager for the American League team. And I honestly think like people are making way too much of a story about this. And clearly it's not in Toronto. It's not in Canada. I think you look at Ernie Clement specifically, the guy's a stud. He's having an unbelievable year and I think fully deserving of being at All-Star Weekend. He has really, really found the consistency. On top of that, Kaz Okamoto does not surprise me at all. When you look, again, another example, this guy's got the backing of an entire country back home. And obviously a big reason why. But he has been really, really good too. Like it's hard to define, I think, in 2026 what defines an all-star. But I think you look specifically at Okamoto, I think somewhat deserving. He's put up some really, really good numbers. The voting, the backing's going to be there too with everything I just mentioned, not only his own fan base, but everybody back home. The big perplexing one for me is Andreas Jimenez. Like he's had a good year, but I think there's going to be some other options available at that position. George Springer right now, second in DH voting. I understand the unhappiness with that, Major League Baseball wide, but you could probably make this case for every fan base where if you take advantage of the voting process and you're a diehard fan base like this Blue Jays fan base who wants to support their players, there's going to be instances like this. And if this pisses you off on a daily basis, have a drink, go out with your family, go for ice cream, go do something, because there are bigger fish to fry in this world than people being pissed off about their favorite player not being a potential all-star because somebody else's stock is doing better than yours. And again, for me, it's more about growing the game. It's great for the market, specifically for Toronto. The understanding it's the only Canadian market. But again, our voting goes a long way as a country, as a city, as a nation, and as a fan base. So I love it. That's pretty much all I have to say on that front when it comes to all-star voting. I know I saw on social media, and producer Thomas Morgan gave me the info as well, just about the upheaval in Major League Baseball. Not so much in Toronto. You're going to support your guys. I get that. But I think if you read the fine print every year when it came to all-star voting, you will find different scenarios and different instances throughout the league, especially in the bigger markets, whether it's Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, where people are voting for guys who shouldn't necessarily be there. Tough crap. That's life in this era. Getting back to this game tonight, I talked to about the Boston Red Sox, excuse me, like similar to a lot of different opponents that the Blue Jays are going to play. I think there is a greater emphasis on AL East division foes, and I think you look at the pitching matchup specifically in this game. Dylan Cease going for the Blue Jays. I thought he was awesome a week ago in his return. Overall, 2.91 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. 103 Ks, which currently leads the American League. Not a big shocker there. 27 walks. Like, that's been the big story for the most part. Evading those walks. I think control has been an issue with Dylan Cease in the past, but I think as advertised so far. And yet another lefty the Blue Jays are facing tonight in the form of Payton Tolle here for the Red Sox. Coming off his worst outing of the season, by the way. He went last Tuesday, 6 innings, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 Ks, 1 walk. Again, not a household name, not a brand name. The Jays, I mean, I think that was the cool thing about the Blue Jays last year. It did not matter who they were facing on the hill. They were going to try to find a way to grind up bats, get the better of him. And that's what I really want to see moving forward from this Blue Jays offense is finding their identity again. Because I think watching game for game, they just look really, really lost. There's no approach. And I know, understandably and rightfully so, last year, Dave Popkins deserved a lot of credit for the approach, of course, talking about the hitting coach of the Blue Jays and how they approached each at-bat. Like, this year has been the contrary. They've looked a lot different. But you look at Tolle, very gettable guy on the hill here for the Boston Red Sox. And conversely, I think you look at Dylan Cease, and I probably had these direct words last week when Cease took to the hill specifically against the Phillies. This is why you signed Dylan Cease. So you're coming off a weekend like this. You've dropped 2 of 3. Overall, you've dropped 4 of 6. Guys like this, horses like this are slump stoppers, if you will, where I think it's so important to get off to a good start, especially in this series when you're playing Boston, you're at Fenway, you know that crowd's going to be buzzing a bit of a wonky start. I think first pitch just after 6:45 p.m. Eastern time. You got to find a way. And I think that is a big reason why you go out and get and pay a lot of money to a horse like a Dylan Cease is a guy having the ability to just completely mow down the opposition. And to his credit, I thought Cease was just as advertised. I was wondering if there was going to be a bit of rust and maybe the first couple innings last time out against Philadelphia, but I thought Cease was tremendous in the way he approached and attacked hitters. His changeup was in the zone. His off speed was dialed in, and I just can't get over, his fastball velocity, to his changeup velocity, and just his mixes of pitches. I had the ability, weirdly enough, a couple years back, to bump into Pete Walker downtown Toronto, and anytime I meet somebody of substance, especially talking baseball, as you guys know, I have a baseball background. I said, Pete, I know we're just hanging out. I know I've just bumped into you at a Toronto bar, but I just got one question. You seem to have a lot of success with pitchers when they come to this market. What is it? And without hesitancy, release point. And I was a bit stunned to hear sort of that remark, that rebuttal from Pete Walker. But obviously there's a lot of different things that he works on with pitchers, regardless of who they are, from Kevin Gausman to Shane Bieber to Trey Savage. But I was curious to find out, like, that's one of the biggest stress points for Pete Walker when working with pitchers is release point. And that's why I was so damn intrigued when they signed Dylan Cease, because I knew he was a bit erratic, but had unbelievable stuff. That fastball plays, folks. There's no other way around it. And there's a reason why every year in and year out, Dylan Cease has top 3 in strikeouts for the most part, most seasons. To me, it was more about, like, could he channel the zone? And I think so far it's actually been a pretty good story. I think people, if they had the expectation of like a Dylan Cease going, 7-8 innings every outing, he's not that type of guy. He strikes out a lot of guys, doesn't play to contact very well, which means he throws a lot of pitches. But I think the key for him is clearly hitting his spots, but keeping the ball in the zone. Because I think when you have that much tail on your fastball and that much movement on your off speed, chances are slim, and I know these are professional hitters and some amazing hitters in Major League Baseball, but there's going to be a lot of swing and miss stuff. And I've been really, really blown away with the professionalism thus far of a Cease, but how he's pretty much done so far as a Blue Jay. Again, you talk about bright spots, and I think you talk about expectation. especially somebody of the ilk of Cease, how early this guy signed with the Blue Jays to begin with. If you recall, back in November, sort of jumped the market, and I comprehend that with the coin they threw this guy's way. But I think he's come as advertised. 3-3, 2.91. He's tossed 68 innings so far, 103 strikeouts. I talked about it earlier on. And I just want to see some level of consistency from the hitters. But I'm so curious to see what this rotation looks like. Knock on wood, they stay healthy now that Shane Bieber's on the mend. Max Scherzer's back in the mix. Suffice it is to say, a big, big start for Max Scherzer tomorrow night. Game 2 of this 3-game set here against Boston. Savage has had his ups and downs, which you probably could have anticipated. Patrick Corbin's been good. For the most part, pitching hasn't been the concern for this Blue Jays squad. But I really want to see these guys, get multiple starts in a row as a collective rotation and go from there. So I think it's really interesting. By the way, if you want to chime in the chat, you can do so right now. Cody Goodrow, who hosts this show, does a great job saying Ben who? Well, Ben Rice is who I'm telling you about. Prince M, can we sweep the Sox? Let's hope. Producer Tom's got a poll up here in the chat. How deep in this game will Cease go? 4 or less, 5, 6, 7 plus, if you want to chime in with your thoughts. I'd probably go, I'll say 6 innings for Dylan Cease tonight. 7 plus is asking for it. Again, he throws a lot of pitches, but I think for the most part, what I need out of Dylan Cease in this game is just keep it in that zone, mix things up, use that fastball, get ahead in the order. It's pretty simple when it comes to Dylan Cease, at least in my world. We talked about his erratic nature in the past, whether it was with the White Sox or San Diego. It's just finding that groove, getting up early. I think it goes without saying it puts a lot less stress on the pitcher, the starting pitcher at least, when your offense goes out there and gets some runs on the board, some crooked numbers, if you will. Like, that would be phenomenal if they went out there and Payton Tolle on the hill here, a lefty for the Red Sox, 3-3, 2.7 ERA, 53 in a third so far this year, 54 Ks. So not really known for strikeout stuff. He's gettable. He is very, very gettable. He's 0-1 against the Jays earlier this season. He had 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 Ks, 4 walks in 4 2/3, and he was pulled after 68 pitches. So don't expect a guy like a Tolle to see him long term in this game. But I think from the Blue Jays potential, you just gotta find a way to get the job done here. And I think you look at tonight's batting order specifically. George Springer's going to lead off batting DH. Ernie Clement playing 2-bag. Vladimir Guerrero playing first. So back in the lineup. That's a really, really good fortunate news and good news coming off the back tightness over the weekend. Alejandro Kirk's going to catch, batting 4. Okamoto's 5th. Nathan Lucas in right field batting 6th. Davis Schneider back with this Blue Jays team since we last spoke. Had a bomb over the weekend. Great to see that. Playing left field, batting 7th. Andreas Jimenez dealing with a bit of a wrist issue over the weekend, batting 8th. And Miles Straw batting 9th. Producer Thomas, if you can text me and tell me if we have an additional read on top of the Bet365 read, I'd appreciate that. The table fair read, just let me know and I'll do it. But yes, the keynotes from the lineup tonight: Vladimir Guerrero returning after missing 2 games with back soreness. So great news. Again, I mentioned the slump anyways, 3 for the last 26. George Springer still leading off with a 192 average. I don't know how much longer that's going to play here. A 375 OBP and a 292 slug. I expected a bit of regression when it came to George Springer, but not to the effect of like that. Like it's pretty stunning where you look at the body of work last year to this year specifically and how much different it looks at the plate right now for George Springer. It's kind of concerning, to be honest. And it's more, I think, of an issue as to what it looked like last year, where just every time he went up, he would just hit, and it was nonstop. But I think when you look at George Springer, just finding a way to get on base. I don't care if it's ugly, just get on base. So we'll see how much longer he lasts batting leadoff for this team. Again, direly need to get their offense going. On the other side of the ball, here's the lineup the Boston Red Sox are going to throw Toronto's way, and specifically Dylan Cease, who again is on the hill. Masataka, Yoshida batting leadoff. I know that name. I watch Red Sox games all the time. Ceddanne Rafael batting 2. He's a name to watch. Will Abreu batting 3, Willison Contreras 4, Jaron Duran 5th, Caleb Durbin batting 6th, IKF, a familiar name with this Blue Jays organization, batting 7th, and Marcelo Meyer 8th, and Connor Wong catching and batting 9th again for Payton Tolle. This segment is brought to you by Table Fare and Social. Heading to the ball game, make Table Fare and Social your first stop. Whether you're meeting friends, grabbing a bite, or kicking off the night with a drink, Table Fare and Social has you covered. Enjoy great food, weekday drink specials, and unbeatable locations just steps from the subway, GO Transit, and the ballpark. Before first pitch, start your game day at Table Fare and Social. I know next time I go to a Blue Jays game, I'll be doing just that. And I think you look at this Blue Jays team, it's pretty simple when I look at key to victory tonight. Talked about it a bit earlier on. Set the tone early. Don't give Boston hope. They're 29-40 on the season. This should be a big series for you. There should be a level of urgency. Again, we're sitting here on June 16th, and the Blue Jays are fortunate to be a game and a half back of a wild card position. Like, I know hearing some different interviews and some podiums from the players and John Schneider, everybody is, they're fortunate. They should be optimistic at the future and what it looks like, but also looking back at the fact that we're about to hit the midway mark of this season in a couple games here, and they really can't find their footing. But I think, again, the good news is that you're right there. You're right there to make the postseason, at least in a wild card spot. And as we learned last year, you can make up considerable ground in a easy time frame too. So I think from that perspective, the Blue Jays have them going for them. But certainly, and this will be a key to victory moving forward for the next 20, 25 games until the offense can find consistency. Set the tone early. You have your horse on the hill. Give him some run support. If you give Dylan Cease a 2 or 3 run lead early, I think that zaps anything that Boston's got cooking, because you're facing one of the best pitchers, period, in baseball. And more times than not, he's going to have his A stuff and he's going to shut you down. I think from his perspective, Cease's perspective, just keep it in the zone. Accuracy's vital, clearly, but command and just use that fastball. And I think from the Blue Jays perspective, if you can score some runs early on, I think you're going to be sitting in a pretty damn good position to win this ball game tonight. A game they really need to have this one. I think you can't understate that, just the importance, the timeliness, the urgency that this Blue Jays team will have to be looking at over, the next little while, where you got to start to put some games together, some wins together, because you don't want to fall too far behind. And again, they've been consistently inconsistent so far in this early season. You can't even call it that anymore as we approach the halfway mark of this Major League Baseball season. Of course, 162 in the regular season. Baseball fans, there's nothing better than a day at the ballpark, but there's nothing worse than waiting in long lines around the ballpark. That's why Bet365 has 5-run early payout. When your team you're riding goes up 5 runs at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. And then right and after, win or loss. No waiting required. Besides, the earlier you get paid, the earlier you can go back for another hot dog. Bet365. Download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please pay responsibly. If you or someone has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. Terms and conditions applied. I'm keeping it simple with my bet tonight. I think there is a route to play Dylan Cease over in strikeouts, because this guy's just a strikeout machine. So I think if you want to look at that number, but most specifically, I'm looking at the Blue Jays money line. They're the better team. They got to sweep them. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think you've got to find a way to gain some momentum. The great news, if you're just tuning in, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. back in the lineup after missing a couple games with back stiffness. Andres Jimenez back. So that's great news all around. You got your horse and Dylan Cease on the hill. There's plenty of horses on that Blue Jays staff, but Cease among them. You paid him all that money. Blue Jays money line. I really like the value there at -120, so that's what I'm going to play tonight against this Boston team, who again is 29-40 on the season. Bottom line, this Jays team needs to start taking care of business moving forward. I don't care if it's tonight, tomorrow, Thursday afternoon. They just got to start stringing some games together, some wins together, and look a bit more inspired at the dish. Like, you only wonder what it's like to be a pitcher, and I know over the weekend, like a Louis Varland had a rough outing or two. I mean, these guys have been in such stressful positions because the offense has been nowhere to be found. You could probably count on one hand how many times the Blue Jays have had over 6 or 7 runs in a game. That puts so much stress on your pitching, never mind your bullpen, but your starting pitching. And for the most part, this team is fortunate to have the guys they have pitching. The bullpen's been much better, I would say, than last year. Work in progress for sure, but I think there's a lot of positives you can grab from what the pitching has displayed thus far this season. But the hitting is what's blown me away, considering how dialed in they were last year, even from an execution standpoint. I talked about it a bit earlier on, the lack of execution by Ernie Clement popping up that bunt and obviously making John Schneider look like a fool because he couldn't lay down that bunt, and maybe the timeliness of not electing to have an Ernie Clement swing away. But from the managerial standpoint, I understand why John Schneider elected to have Ernie Clement bunt in that situation. Nobody's hitting the ball. And I know Clement was, but I think you play the data, you play the analytics, and you move the guy ahead, and maybe it's easier to scrape a run across in that series, especially against a division rival in the New York Yankees. So let's hope this Blue Jays team can string things together. Again, Dylan Cease on the hill here. I believe first pitch just after 6:45 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have you covered as per usual here at BlueJaysNation.com, where you can hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, BlueJaysNation.com, where you can check out the latest stories pertaining to the Blue Jays. There's always lots to cover. They made a bit of a minor trade. Connor Siebold gets dealt to Kansas City for a minor league reliever. Not one that really stands out for me. I think you're going to see a lot of different relievers go through this Jays team throughout the season, and I can't say I walked away watching Siebold being like, oh my goodness, they need to keep this guy in the mix. But Dan writes into Schneider wasn't in the dugout at that time. Understandable. Dan also has a prediction. Appreciate the chiming in here in the chat at BlueJaysNation.com. Dan, 4-3 Jays is what Dan is predicting. So I appreciate that message from Dan here in the chat. And again, you always have the platform to chime in with us via the chat at BlueJaysNation.com if you want to do so. So don't forget, we're live every game day, 1 hour before first pitch, just like today, right here on the Blue Jays Nation YouTube and on Instagram at Blue Jays Nation. I'll be back tomorrow for game 2 of this 3-game set. Max Scherzer. Could this be the biggest start of Max Scherzer's career? Probably not, but one of the most important for sure, depending on the longevity of his career. I think we're getting to a point where the Blue Jays have to make some decisions, considering they're not winning games and considering guys are getting healthier, especially with Shane Bieber on the mend and close to returning to this Blue Jays rotation. What does that mean for Max Scherzer? So no doubt this guy puts the most pressure on himself opposed to anybody, but this is a big start coming up tomorrow at Fenway. First pitch just after 6:45 p.m. Eastern time, which means I'll be with you at 5:45 p.m. Eastern time. We'll talk then. Thank you to Thomas Morgan for now. I bid you farewell. I'm Nick Alberga. This has been Flight Deck. Enjoy this one. The Blue Jays visiting the Boston Red Sox for game 1 of a 3-game set. Take care.
Thanks for watching the live stream. If you want more content like this, Blue Jays focused, make sure to like and subscribe to the Blue Jays